Hey, and welcome to Dirty Lazy Girl, a podcast that offers realistic girlfriend support and problem solving for imperfect people.
You don't have to be perfect to be successful. Every week, we'll give you unconventional, dirty, or lazy problem-solving strategies. Let's get started. Stephanie, I am your biggest road trip nightmare. I'm telling you, I get super grumpy when I'm in the car for a long period of time, and I don't like driving. It makes me anxious. And I've literally given myself a bladder infection avoiding those stinky gas station bathrooms. So is there hope for me, Stephanie? Like, can someone like me actually, still have a decent road trip?
Well, you know what, Tamara, at my house, the biggest struggle for having a good time on a road trip is not actually being on the road. It's leaving the house. So we sit in the driveway, in the car, with the car running, with the dog. The clock is ticking and we're all just screaming at each other. We're like, oh, I forgot this. I forgot that. I have to use the bathroom. And did I close this? Did I lock the doors? And so we run in and out of the house like for 30 minutes, screaming and yelling at each other that we want to leave. And it's a nightmare. So it's gotten so bad that I've actually tricked the family and schedule our departure like 30 minutes before we're actually supposed to leave, just to allow for 30 minutes of yelling and screaming. Classy, right?
Yeah, but we probably had similar situations because there's a lot of anxiety, but just before a trip, don't you feel like it's like, like, I know. Once you're on the road, it seems to calm down a little bit.
Well, maybe for some people, right?
Right. So in today's episode, we've come up with 8 strategies to make your next road trip the trip of a lifetime. And I need this, Stephanie. But first, why don't we take a quick break?
Awesome. Thanks, Tamara. Well, hey, today's episode is brought to everybody who likes to take a dirt cheap vacation on the road. All those people that are thrifty like me, you will love the new Dirty Lazy Keto Dirt Cheap Cookbook. Every recipe here in the cookbook costs $10 or less to make, and that's for the whole recipe. So that's pretty cool. I like to save money.
Nice. By the way, I made the cinnamon chaffles from that book.
Hello.
Yummy. So yummy. It was like a little bit like a keto churro.
That's the taste I was going for.
Yeah, it was awesome. So just wanted to throw that in there. Okay, so let's get started with our strategies that our listeners can try at home or on the road.
I like that.
So I love your title of your first one, Stephanie. What's our first one?
Well, this is reminiscent of Oprah. But do you remember when Oprah would have her favorite things and she would go, a new car?
Oprah, call us.
Oprah, we're waiting for you. But this is my first strategy for our listeners to try at home. If they're taking a road trip and they want to make sure they have a good time, I think that if your car sucks, if it's too small, if it's too old, if it's too unreliable, or just not fun, then go ahead and rent one, okay? Mm-hmm. Or borrow one. And I think that renting a car has come a long way. It's very inexpensive. If you want to do a one-way travel, I recommend going to Costco.com for renting cars. It's super cheap, and they even give you a second driver for free, and they don't charge you until like the day of your trip, which is unusual. Most rental car companies charge you right away. So
this is, to me, I think this is like my favorite tip because we did this when we were first married because we had like junker cars, and for me, it's the peace of mind. Like I don't have to worry about the thing breaking down halfway. And can you imagine like that totally can ruin a road trip if
mm-hmm.
you're, on the side of the road, freaking with your radiator
all overheated, screaming at each other.
Oh my God. Just the peace of mind. But yeah, we used to rent one and people would think we were weird. Like, why are you renting a car? You have
a fancy car. And then like, I remember when I was little, we didn't have air conditioning in our car, but we would drive to Florida every year for our big family trip. So renting a car allowed us to get air conditioning, which was a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, that just reminds me, one time we took a road trip when I was a kid without an air cononditioner because we did things like that.
Yeah.
To the Mojave Desert.
Oh, that sounds really
112.
fun.
5 of us, 3 of us in the back seat. It was
with
great.
no air conditioning.
No. So the new car thing, it's a great idea. Also, too, if you don't want, it could be just more comfy. Like if you have
Yeah.
kids, rent a honking big old van.
Mm-hmm.
You would be amazed at how much better that makes your trip. It's just having all that room.
And the new cars, Tamara, some of them have Wi-Fi in the car. I don't even know how that works, but that sounds like it's worth it to me.
Like heaven.
Right? And
Yes.
you know what, my boss, I'm so excited about this new car tip. My supervisor at one of my jobs, she is going on a road trip and she's renting an RV just so she can bring her cats because she doesn't want to hire a pet sitter. And I'm like, well, that's genius.
It is genius. And how fun to go with your cats, and then you don't have that worry or that expense.
Mm-hmm.
And how fun would an RV be?
I know. I want to try that.
I do too.
I'll come pick you up. Let's go.
Okay, our second one is to plan it or not. So, okay, part of what makes road trips great is that you can be spontaneous, but I would say don't forget to plan certain things. Like we have Google Maps now, people. Google Maps is your friend. It is an amazing adventure, an invention. Get to know it, because like it can help you plan your routes to avoid traffic. Like it can tell you what traffic conditions are like typically on that particular day you're going. So, oh my goodness, you can avoid huge traffic delays, or even while you're driving, like you see the traffic stopped and it'll reroute you. And sometimes you save hours, so definitely use your Google Maps, but also think of other things. Like some people think you can just get on the road and then sure, you're going to get a hotel or a campsite, however you're, whichever way you're going. But what you don't realize is often the campsites are totally packed and you need a reservations. And same with the hotel. My sister had a funny experience. They were going to Reno, or through Reno, didn't have hotel reservations. And they literally ended up staying in a hotel that charged by the hour.
No.
Yes. Like,
wow.
Yeah. So
that
you don't want to
end up an adventure.
Yes, you do not want to be in they called it the hotel.
The hotel.
Yes. Don't end up in a hotel.
That's quite an adventure.
Yes.
So I feel you. I mean, I think it's important to plan, and I am the biggest planner. I get a lot of joy out of planning. It makes me really excited to look forward to the trip. But sometimes, Tamara, I plan so much that it ruins it for the rest of my family because I get a little obsessive about every detail.
Wow.
So for me, sometimes I've learned not planning is actually kind of fun.
Nice.
Just planning not to plan. Yeah.
And those are where the memories are, right?
Yeah.
Like, that unplanned little pit stop at some, giant dinosaur and everybody like has a blast.
Yeah.
So maybe you can kind of plan for the unplanning, like
maybe certain days.
Yeah.
Not to plan.
Yeah.
Maybe something in between.
Yeah.
But you know what? You told me earlier you had a really funny app for something with planning. I think you have to share. Now, don't be embarrassed. I want you to tell the truth.
Thank you for reminding me.
This is one that made me laugh. I'm like,
okay. Well, because I'm like fearful of gas station bathrooms and I end up with bladder infections, I found, Stephanie, an app called Sit and Squat.
What was it called again?
Sit and Squat. And the makers are Charmin, the toilet paper company. Love that. Way to go, Charmin. And it tells you like where the nearest restroom is, but it also tells you things like, does it have a changing table? Like if you need that. And also you can rate it. So all the users go rate the bathroom. So if it's like got a really horrible rating for cleanliness, boom, just skip that one and go to the next one. So I am just stoked about using this app.
That is really funny.
Yeah.
That's totally you. And listeners, if you haven't listened to our poop episode back in season 1, I really think you might want to go dial it back to season 1 for the pooping episode.
Because travel messes with your bowels.
It sure does. You need to plan ahead for that.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to move on to tip 3.
Okay.
For you to have a successful road trip, listeners, tip 3 is to get loaded. Now, that does not mean what you think it might mean. Okay. There's no drinking and driving on our trip. But
you know what I thought of, Stephanie? Loaded baked potato.
A loaded baked potato. No, we're not talking about that either. What I want you to do is get loaded with your technology, because if you plan a little bit ahead with downloading family-friendly podcasts onto your iPhone or onto your iPad, or whatever your, reader is, I think you can have a lot of fun on your trip. That way you have something already planned for entertainment. You can maybe negotiate it as a family, like books on tape or a podcast, hashtag Dirty Lazy Girl podcast. You could download season 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Seriously though, my husband loves this tip. He walks around the house screaming at the kids, "Did you download your episodes?" Because on Amazon and also Netflix, you can actually like download programs to watch without Wi-Fi. And I didn't realize that. I always thought you needed Wi-Fi, to watch a show, but you can actually download them offline for airplanes and for travel.
It's great. You just have to do a little pre-planning, but
Saves a lot of happiness later when the children are fighting in the back seat.
Seriously.
Or the husband or the sister.
Or if you just need to escape yourself. And they're 2 hours, like a movie's 2 hours. That's like
mad relaxation. Yeah.
Oh my God. And we preload other things too besides.
What do you preload?
Well, this is gonna reveal my nerdiness, but we also play games in the car. We used to bring those travel bingo cards. I don't know,
I totally bought those, and you can still buy them. Like
they're
retro
still
bingo
out there.
Cards.
Our latest game has been 20 questions, so you played that, and that actually can fill up a good hour or two with these goofy games. So download the technology, but also think about packing up maybe old school just to mix it up.
You know what, Tamara? We play that with the license plates. I printed out all 50 states and I made multiple copies. I keep them in the glove compartment. And then we play that same game where if you find, Nevada, cross it off, Utah, cross it off. And then whoever gets to 50 wins.
One piece of advice with that, my kids play the punch version where you punch someone if they.
It's not good.
No, it was terrible. It's not good. It ends in tears every time.
That's not good. Yeah. And then I'll also reveal, you should never have the children pitted against each other. No. I tried that in our last trip and it was such a bad idea.
No.
So I've learned to have it like adults against kids.
Yes.
Much better.
Yes. Good tip.
Yeah.
Seriously, the whole goal of these road trips with kids is to not kill one another.
That's right. Or whoever's in the car. You could do men against women, or sisters against brothers, whoever is in your road trip. But definitely teams might be a better way to go. So we're not all like punching each other and fighting by the time we get to our destination.
Yeah. Well, this next tip is kind of like that. It's called Your Turn.
Whose turn is it?
Yeah. Taking turns. What are we talking about with that?
I think like when I was little, my dad always drove and that was just the way it was. But then my dad would get super tired and crabby. So I've learned in my relationship to really try to take turns and maybe offer to drive when it's a good time for me. Like I'm really fresh in the morning. I love, getting up and I have a lot of energy. So I offered to drive first thing. My husband's more of a late night guy. He doesn't mind driving later, but I think it helps play to each other's strengths and not be afraid to, take turns.
Yeah. Divide up the labor. And it doesn't mean it has to be like, I do 50 driving and you do 50 driving, but maybe, if you're better entertaining the kids, or if you're better at navigating and then let the driver drive, that if that works for you, just split it up so that you give yourself jobs that don't tire you out is, I think, the point. Like for me, since driving makes me anxious, and I don't like it. But my husband does need breaks, like he'll, like you said, he'll start feeling grumpy. So what I do is I pick the hard parts of the journey, like when we're in heavy traffic or
that's smart.
Winding roads. I save that for him.
I was going to say, I thought you were going to offer to do it. And then
no.
That was really funny. You surprised me.
I was like, I will drive more, honey, but give me the easy part. And he's okay with that. Like, he's like, okay, I don't mind driving in, downtown San Francisco. But you drive, the easy part through the valley or something.
Yeah. And you know what? One of the things I like to do is pack the car. I'm more of a spatial person. I like things a certain way. So we've learned that that's my job. Everyone back off. Just let me do it the way I want. Otherwise, we don't get in fights. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to divide and conquer, like you said. What's important to you, what you're good at.
Yeah. Perfect. Save you a lot of arguments.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is all about having a good time. So number 5, reminiscent of having a good time.
Yeah. What's number 5?
Tailgate. Tailgate.
Yeah, like treat it like a party. In fact, I buy food for the kids like it's a party.
What do you buy? I want
Well,
to come on your trip.
well, I make them eat healthy, and certainly on the trip you want them eating healthy, but I also let them have like splurges because I know that'll make the being in the car a little bit more fun. So, if they have their favorite little candy or something, I'll throw a few of those in there.
Yeah. My husband does it. He takes them to the 99-cent store and like gives them each $5 or $10 and says, buy whatever you want. This is for your trip. And then they know they have their hot Cheetos or M&Ms or whatever it is that makes them happy.
Exactly. Now for me, I know I get headaches easily, and especially traveling. And I've figured out that it's because I'm dehydrated. So
as I'm taking a drink, how appropriate.
I know. So for me, tailgating means I need to do a lot of like more hydrating things like veggies and fruit. And then, now I bring my bottle with lots of water.
Your bottle.
I know.
Tailgating.
Yeah. So
of water.
So what do you bring for yourself?
Well, it's funny you asked Tamara about the drinks because I have a minivan, so that's very helpful, but we bring one of those giant tailgating coolers, just full of drinks. And then we bring a second giant cooler full of food. So I take my eating very seriously. I'm almost embarrassed to admit it. But you know what? I'm cheap and we don't have a lot of money to spend at, McDonald's and all those rest stops because it adds up fast. Every time you stop anywhere and you walk into a convenience store or a fast food restaurant, at my house, easily you could spend $40-$50. So instead I bring tons of snacks, tons of little Ziploc bags and just, food and drinks that they can grab from the car that's free.
Perfect.
Yeah,
yay.
That's the way to go.
Tailgate. Yes.
No, but girlfriend, I even bring, I'm going to just tell all my stories. I bring silverware. I have plates in my car. I have a salt shaker. Like I don't mess around. And we have a full-size trash can. I want to have everything ready to go so that we can have a great trip without, stopping every 5 minutes to spend more money.
And that's one of the beauties of road trips. Like you can save money. So take advantage of it.
Yeah, this shouldn't be expensive.
Yeah. Okay, our sixth tip is to separate the fighters and biters.
And this may not just be your children. There are people in the family sometimes that just don't get along, right, Tamara? Especially when you're all crammed in that little vehicle and just too close to each other. I know like everyone gets on each other's nerves. So I like this tip.
Literally, we put a physical barrier between our kids.
I want to hear more about this.
Well, we put like, they're in the back seat. So in that little middle area, we put like the cooler or pillows or whatever. We put their backpacks, all goes there. It like just having that physical space helps because half the fights are don't touch me or you took my thing.
Right. So, oh my God, I'm having a memory right now. We had so much stuff in our car one time, Tamara. We were going camping.
Yeah.
And we had a physical barrier between the two kids, like, I don't know, surfboards or whatever. Like it went all the way to the ceiling. And then we went around a corner and it all crashed on my son. It all fell on him. And we had to like pull over and he was screaming. Yeah. So be careful with that barrier, people. Maybe not so high.
Yeah. And you can also, another way to separate them in a sense is giving them separate toys, separate pillows, separate whatever. Or even, I think you had mentioned separate charging stations.
I set up, because we have the minivan again, which, not everyone has, but if you're able to rent one, highly recommend it. We made it just kind of special. Like we assigned the back row to one child, the middle row to another. And when they were little, we tricked them because no one wanted certain rows, right? Because there's some better than others. So we gave them like special awards, like, oh, you're the mayor of the middle row. And then the whole trip we'd call him mayor. And for some reason that was very cool. And then I also set charging stations in different corners of the car. And I ordered those super long USB wires and in the cigarette lighters. I can't talk today. The cigarette lighters and the USB ports. That way they had separate charging areas. And then that physically just made them separate in the car because they wanted to keep their phones and iPads plugged in.
Yeah, it works, people.
And husbands, sometimes, he'll go back there and when I'm driving and just check out for a while and be plugged in and watch TV or something.
Yeah.
Everybody enjoys a little downtime.
Yeah, exactly. And even in a small space, you can kind of create that.
Yes. Go back. What was that episode we did about creating a space? You and I
Yeah,
talked about our giant Oompa Loompa headphones and putting
seriously.
our hoodies on and just all those
Yeah,
tips to try to give yourself a little privacy so
yeah,
that you can put your things on your eyes and just check out for a while.
yeah, because you kind of need it.
Yeah, especially when you're on a long car trip.
Yeah, like day 3.
And then you're like,
Um,
I can't stand it any longer.
and that's maybe why our 7th tip is called help.
Help, help, help. Who do you ask for help?
Um,
Well, I'll tell you what I do.
okay.
I like to have kind of a backup plan
Yeah.
because, as you know, things always go wrong. I have to tell a funny story. My husband was recently on a car trip and he lost his keys and he didn't have backup keys. And even though we had like the car service to come out and try to unlock the car, they couldn't find the keys. So we've learned it's important to have a backup set of keys and also like a charger for your cell
Yeah.
phone, maybe even a paper map. We've been places, especially in Hawaii, where there's no internet and then we're lost. So it's important to just have that kind of backup plan so that when
Yeah.
you need help, there's somewhere you can go for it.
Yeah. And our story, similar story about having a backup plan was when we got a flat tire, but like my husband, he can change the flat tire, no problem. But we got it on a freeway that was super busy, had no shoulder. We're barely, I mean, cars are just like, we couldn't
That's
even get out of
terrifying.
the car. We had to get out of the car, like through the passenger. And then we happen to know that was like in this really bad part of like Compton.
Oh, okay. So you're in a rough area and you have
We're
a
in a
flat
rough
tire
area.
and it's not safe with the traffic.
No, and thank God we had a roadside service. And I tell you, those people are great. The guy was in there like 5 minutes. He somehow changed out flat tire with no shoulder. I don't know how he did
Wow.
it, but it was a lifesaver. And for me, that's one of those peace of mind things. Like, I have that help if we need it. So I recommend it. It's not super pricey, but it is a yearly charge, but to me, it's totally worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you like
A
your
lot of
keys
people
out,
don't know this. When you rent a car, you know how when you're renting a car, they try to charge you a million add-ons.
Mhm.
But your roadside service covers you when you're on a rental car. So you don't need to add that when you're renting
Yeah,
a car for a big trip
good tip.
because we've had to do that multiple times. Used our current roadside
Yeah,
service
yeah,
for help when we've lost our keys or locked our keys in our car or
yeah,
one of the other 100 things that go wrong.
yeah. Okay, our final tip. What is our final tip, Stephanie?
Well, we want to bring new stuff for the kids, and kids can mean spouse, right? Or kids, but bringing some new things for
Yeah,
everybody. What do
yeah.
you like to bring for your family?
Well, I save like I know Ella's really looking forward to the movie Milan. I'm like, if we're going on a trip, I'm gonna buy it and download it because she'll be so thrilled like to see that. So whatever their favorite movie is or a new book. I remember Alex was really at one point into Pokemon. So I would buy him like the latest Pokemon at the time he's using one of those DS games, and then I would save it and then it would be like this brand new thing. And literally that would entertain him for 15 hours because it
Oh,
was
wow.
new. Yeah,
Because it was new.
it was new. Yeah.
Well, my tip, Tamara, is to actually bring new things for yourself. Because one of the things I've learned in all the travel nightmares that I've experienced, especially with road trips, is that my personality type is I tend to want to take care of everybody else and make sure they have a good time. I remember going to Hawaii one time with my 2-year-old daughter at the time, and I bought all these cool new toys for her, and I wrapped them individually so that it would take time for her to open each one on the plane and play with. And I mean, I did so much work for her and backup clothes and snacks and all this fabulous parenting. But then when she threw up on me on the trip, I didn't have a change of shirt. I didn't have anything back up. So
Yeah.
I've learned, the hard way that I think I have to plan for myself. I have to pack new things for me, like a new magazine, a new book, new earbuds, maybe a fresh new blanket or new lotion. And it makes me feel more centered, more calm, happier, and more taken care of.
That's a great tip. I like to catch up on my podcasts.
Nice.
Or books on tape for myself.
For yourself.
For
I
myself.
like to buy special drinks. Like I'm on a road trip right now. I don't think we acknowledged that I am not in the studio.
It's lovely.
I don't think we brought that up. Everyone's like,
No.
what is she doing? Where is Stephanie right now? Yeah, I'm on a road trip right now, and Tamara did a road trip last weekend. So both of us were sharing, commiserating, and just like maybe other people are going through this too. Maybe we should do an episode about it.
Yeah. And for those of you who can't see, she's sitting in this beautiful little garden with trees and
here I am.
Flowers. And
one of my road trip hacks is to take care of myself. I buy like special drinks or food that maybe are too expensive to buy at home. Like at home, I usually make my own flavored waters, but when I'm on the road, I like to buy sugar-free Powerade or sugar-free Gatorade already made. And for me, it's like 89 cents and I feel really important.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of sad.
No, it's not.
Worse. For me, it's such a treat. I'm like,
No.
ooh, pre-made Kool-Aid.
Exactly. And you stay hydrated. So listeners, how do you plan road trips? Tell us your awesome tips by emailing Stephanie at dirtylazyketo.com or via Facebook or Instagram at dirtylazyketo. So before we get to our final favorite hacks, let's stop and take one more quick break.
So thank you, Tamara. Today's episode is brought to you by the Dirty Lazy Keto Dirt Cheap Cookbook. It's published by Simon & Schuster, and I just found out it will be available at Target and at Walmart, in addition to Barnes & Noble and all of the other bookstores that you're used to shopping at. And it's full of tips and tricks to help you save money and time while cooking your way to weight loss. Plus, it's a lot of fun. I just want to tell people that this isn't just a normal cookbook. I put a lot of stories in here, a lot of encouragement and positive motivation to help you, feel supported, like you're not alone in the kitchen.
Thanks, Stephanie. So let's wrap up today's episode with our personal favorite hacks. And I'll go first. This is like a tiny little fussy tip, but I find it really helpful, which is I make everyone, before we get out of the car, like let's say we're at a pit stop, and I say, everybody stop before you get out, pick up all the trash, pick up all the empty cups. I want to see you take it out. And I lead them to the trash can. And that way, for me, like, just you're in this car and if it starts building up trash, it's gross. So to me, that's my tip at every stop, the trash can.
You're the trashy lady. Get trashy. That's your tip.
Get trashy. That's my tip.
Trashy. Well, Tamara, my hack for our listeners is just, and I have to remind myself of this because everyone knows I'm a little bit of a control freak. I have to remind myself that when things go wrong and things, bad things happen, sometimes those make the funnest, craziest memories, that the ones that you talk about over the holidays and you laugh about for years to come. So I'm thinking about, recently we took a trip that we still talk about. I say recently, but this was a few years ago, but we talk about it constantly. We were at a gas station and I don't know, somebody got something out of the trunk, whatever. And you might guess what happened next. We pulled away from the gas station. We were leaving and we're on the big road. And all of a sudden everyone's screaming all at once. And I'm like, what's happening? And I look behind me and guess what? The hatchback to the car was still open. And all of our Christmas presents and our luggage flew out of the back of the car and was all over the road. Yeah. So sometimes things go wrong. But you know what? At the time, it was horrible. But now it's the funniest road trip memory we have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what I love about road trips. And this is, I'll just wrap it up by saying, they have the potential to be super memorable and bonding because you are in a car cramped together. I mean, that can lead to problems, but it's also a way to really bond together. So it's also money saving. Like if you don't have a lot of money, it gives you a way to do that and have these great vacations that you may not otherwise do. So whether or not you're, camping out of your car or staying in a 5-star motel, and regardless if you're like me and you don't see yourself as the kind of person who is really good at road trips, it can be made better. Like just follow some of our tips and a little bit of pre-planning and you can actually be more awesome. So we want to make sure you stay safe and all your needs are met as you enjoy the open road.
Well, we hope that you're enjoying the Dirty Lazy Girl podcast. And if you would help us show your support by leaving a review, we sure appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, it's important to like the video and then make a comment and then subscribe and turn on your notifications. That way you don't miss future episodes. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, or any of the other ways that you listen to podcasts, we would sure appreciate it if you left a review on Apple Podcasts. At this time, they are the only service collecting reviews. And here's how. On your iPhone, select the purple podcast icon, use the search tool and type in Dirty Lazy Girl. Click on the thumbnail to open it up. Scroll down until you see ratings and reviews. Click on the stars. Select 5 stars, we hope. Scroll down and select leave a review. Type in your review and hit OK.
Nice. And we have a review, Stephanie. Can I read it?
Oh, I can't wait.
Okay. This one says, I'm new to DLK. Love the podcast. Listen to them all. Apparently it took her 2 to 3 days. I've read the
I think
book.
it says 2 to 3 a day.
Oh, a day. Oh,
She's listening to
I read that
2
wrong.
to 3 podcasts a day.
Oh,
This is our superstar. This is our superstar listener, people.
She didn't even save it for a road trip.
She did not.
Awesome. And
That's why we're playing this one.
She said, I've read the book and picked a start date. I'll keep you posted. The episodes are very encouraging. Love ya, your dirty, lazy keto girlfriend, Francie.
Francie, we love you.
I know. And you know what I'm so impressed with is that she and others have done this. They announced that they're going to take this journey. And I'm like, that's so brave, don't you think?
Yes. And I love that they listen to the podcast to help support them, because losing weight is not about cutting carbs. It is about putting yourself first and overcoming obstacles. And you have to figure out the dirty and lazy ways to modify your life to make that happen.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Dirty Lazy Girl podcast. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Turn on your notifications so you'll never miss a video, and we'll see you next week.